Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to For All Mankind by Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario Busto, alongside
the other host, Zachary Newton. Welcome back.
We got a special one tonight, folks. We are doing a double-header special, courtesy of a jam-packed holiday schedule that didn't allow us to space out our content as we usually do. So we got one special for you. We're doing Season 4, Episode 3 and Episode 4, starting with Episode 3, The Bear Hug.
Yeah. These are not very kind episodes in terms of us just kind of like having a double header. These were both, I think, very dense. There's so much that happened. And I think that, both episodes really just focus on the whole Russia storyline. And I would say a lot of development with Miles' character. That's those for me at least were the key points that I remember when I look back at episode 3. And having literally just watched episode 4. There's a lot interesting there.
Yeah, I'll say right off the bat, episode 3 to me is the strongest episode of the season so far. And these two episodes are just so connected to each other because of what you said. We have a couple of different storylines that are just kind of bridging between episodes here. The Russia situation has escalated with Margo, right? So we're seeing how Margo's role is going to come into play here. But there's been a coup that's removed Gorbachev from power. And now Korzhenko, it is tough to remember all the names because, For All Mankind is great at a lot of things, namely making you care about characters that you've just met, right? Because we really didn't know Sveta very well until these two episodes, right? We saw her in the earlier episodes, of course, but we didn't really get to know her and her connection to Ed and their relationship. We didn't see any of that prior to this. And, you meet all these characters and you grow close to them too. It gets to a point that I wrote a side note on my notes. I put, generally most people are just good, Obviously you have the one oddball here or there, but it just seems to be the people in power who mess up things for like the innocent people, right? From all the storylines we see, mainly in the Soviet storyline, right? Where you have Margo, who's just a grade A snitch over there trying to save herself. She's in complete self-preservation mode, but in the same time while doing her job is threw some guy under the bus who hid some important information about those anchor stakes that multiple people were saying looked too flimsy for that asteroid capture program. But we're seeing just a lot of people getting caught in the crossfire of just geopolitical controversies.
100%. I think, Margo being in self-preservation mode is completely understandable. She is in a foreign place. I don't know quite how long she's been there, but I'd be keeping, an eye out for me, myself, and I as well.
Yeah. Well, she put herself in that situation, right? With Sergei. I wrote in at my episode 3 notes that, she's crying for America at this point because just everything is so backwards in the situation that she finds herself here, which we'll get into in depth. I wanted to say something because I find it criminal that I haven't mentioned this in any of our 2 previous episodes, but
okay.
Does any new character this season strike a familiar tone for you? And I don't believe I've mentioned this in episode 1 or 2.
I don't think you've mentioned it. No, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
Does a certain NASA director look similar to a character from a movie you may or may not have seen? Very famous movie.
No, it's not ringing a bell. It's really not.
Does a certain NASA director may or may not look identical to a certain house robber that once invaded a home with a boy who was left behind while his parents went on vacation and left him not once, but twice?
Oh, you're talking about Home Alone?
Yeah. The actor who plays Eli Hobson and the director of NASA is Daniel Jacob Stern. He's actually Marv in Home Alone. He is the tall robber with Joe Pesci's character.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm 100% serious, which it took me longer than I want to admit to realize that, like, well into episode 2, where I was like, damn it, I knew this face was familiar, and it's him. Just 30, 40,
you're
30 years
right.
later.
You are right. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
No, I did that. That did not cross my mind one bit.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I saw it because I don't believe I've seen him in much
Anything.
that's crossed my mind. Nothing that's like to the point where it's been prominent that I like. Hey, it's Marv, but he was Marv, right? Which was the name of the other robber?
He was Marv.
Yeah, he was Marv. What was the name of the other robber? Just by curiosity. Joe Pesci's character.
You would ask me that.
Oh,
Who was it? I should know that.
Are you not Googling it?
I am looking. Harry.
Of course, it all rings.
It's Christmas season. We should know who these people are. We should be watching Home Alone like every other day.
10 points from Gryffindor right there. All right. Well, episode 3, we get into that Russia situation because, we ended episode 2 with Margo getting her glasses stomped on in the middle of her daily morning routine. And she's found herself in the middle of a coup where essentially the counterintelligence KGB is, trying to take out Gorbachev. And this new regime is more closely modeled to the Lenin, Stalin
Marxist,
era of Soviet Russia, right? To the point where things boil over between Russians on Happy Valley base between Sveta and Galkin, and shit hits the fan. Let's just put it that way.
That it does. I don't think I've heard anything more terrifying in the show beyond hearing the KGB that watches the KGB.
Yeah.
Like that's just so unsettling to me if I were Margo or anybody over there.
It confused me a little bit, but I guess the gist of that wasn't it just like this is the KGB above the KGB?
That's
right?
what it seems like.
Because do you know a little bit about like Stalin? I think I read like a bio on Stalin like a long time ago.
I haven't read the bio or anything, but
he got to a point of like paranoid, I don't know if he was schizophrenic, but he was like paranoid at towards the end where he was just killing all of his officers for like concerned about a coup. Yeah. So like the KGB that watches the KGB is kind of that same mindset. Like it's like, the Dark Knight, right? Where each robber is killing the robber who to pretty much little by little get rid of all of the anybody who could trace it back to the origin, right?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta clean up loose ends here. You gotta be the only man standing.
Yeah. We also have another storyline that we didn't really mention, but it's Dev Iesa's return, his redemption, right? Yes. Where you have Kelly and Aleida who are trying to pitch the Mars Seeker project, and it's getting turned down by all sorts of private funding. While you got Dev somewhere on this beautiful beach on a beautiful property, kind of in his feelings, he's kind of in his own head, a little bit distraught, or not a little bit, a lot of bit distraught about just human nature and his purpose, probably, right? Which I wrote, side note, Karen Baldwin's path of destruction just continues to wreak havoc, right? Because although Karen was integral, right, and talented in her own right as a manager, she did root Dev out. She turned the board against him, if I'm not mistaken, and she became CEO, which ended up being a betrayal when he brought her in, So it's interesting to see that redemption arc where now Kelly is kind of redeeming that relationship that her mother frayed in a way. And now Dev, in one of the most badass scenes ever, does a hostile takeover of his own company, right? It's kind of, I know we've talked about Dev, and this is like 2 Apple shows in a row where we talk about the Elon Musk character, but Dev is truly the Elon Musk character in For All Mankind, where he created this private company that is ahead of NASA in many ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there he is, like Steve Jobs, who got voted out of his own company from Apple, coming back.
Exactly what I was thinking.
and crapping on everybody, right? And just name by name. He's almost telling everybody like, yeah, I paid attention to everything while I was gone. You get
you
out.
Didn't believe me. You're fired.
Hey, and he's like, and you thought you weren't taken? I saw what you negotiated those subsidies. They were criminal. Get out too, you know?
Oh man. You know what that scene really reminded me of? I don't know if it's real or not, but like there's this video that I've seen pop up on like Twitter or X now and YouTube every now and then, and it's Elon Musk hopping on like a Zoom call and he's like, yeah, Mario, you're fired. The next person, you're fired. Like that's what it reminded me of.
I would love to know if that's a real thing. Hopefully there was somebody named Mario in there.
I think it's real. No, I don't think there was a Mario. I don't think it's real, but it's popped up on my feed so many times. At this point, I have no idea if it is or not. But it was funny. At least I found it pretty funny. Sucks for those people if it was real though. Sorry that you got fired.
Yeah. Back on Happy Valley, despite having a rough start on Mars with his many souls, as we mentioned in episode 1, one of my favorite storylines between these two episodes was Miles beginning to work with Ilya, the Russian smuggler who has his own little speakeasy in the lower levels of the ship.
Yeah, it is a pretty cool speakeasy. But for a moment in these two episodes, I really thought that Miles was turning a new leaf. Or like he got me for a minute. Like I saw him and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much what I expected of him. And then it looked like he was turning a new leaf for a moment. But I gotta say, we're kind of back to where we started. I still think my initial perception of him is proving to be true.
I feel like I've been getting hoodwinked by Miles over and over again. Like just when I think, oh, I'm right. I'm going to win this bet that he's not going to ruin everything on Happy Valley. He does something so stupid that I can't comprehend. And then I just write in my notes, seems like Zach is right. Seems like Zach is right again, because
you never know.
He's getting pressure from his wife, who's honestly, if I got that call from my wife across
you'd be doing the same thing.
I'd be pissed, huh?
I said you'd probably be doing the same thing.
As Miles, like trying to get money back to my wife?
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say this. I'm reading fine print before I hop on a ship and go to Mars to find out that I'm going to make less than I was making on Earth. Like that surprise is not going to occur for me. Okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, pick your spouses wisely, because if your spouse is calling you from 200 million miles away to give you shit about the fact that you need more money, okay? And then Miles starts to earn more money, okay? And then she says, hey, can you get me some more of those rocks? We need to start a new jewelry chain with these Mars rocks. I'm like, am I not doing enough smuggling goods illegally back home, making more money? So like, when is enough enough? The first call, don't get me wrong, I thought it was warranted. The wife calling and saying like, what the hell were you thinking going to Mars if you were going to make less than you made here? But then the second call, after the money's already pouring in from the Ilya operation, right? Because this is how this goes, right? You got the good operation that's moving smoothly, and then you got Bozo number 1 coming in with a bright new idea to expand said operation, which brings in more people, and more people means more complication. And as Ilya said, I agree with Ilya. Whatever's going to occur here with these Mars rocks is going to blow up all of Ilya's operation.
Well, it's not just the expanding, it's the elevating of the operation,
it's
right?
The fact that
that's
it's
what
criminal.
Miles keeps doing. Well, of course it's criminal, but you not only are you scaling up, right? You're also like literally leveling up the complexity and probably legal issues and whatever else you could think of.
Well, the fact that it being a smuggling operation, right? You can't. The more people you have who know about this speakeasy, right? The more people that know about this smuggling operation, the higher the chance of it getting completely screwed up. And then if Svetlana got sent back for gently pushing somebody outside in Mars, okay, what is this guy going to go to jail for? Ilya,
Seriously. And it's taken a business from not only just an import business to now an import-export business.
And not paying also, Russia back for it, too. I'm assuming they want to have their
I'm
cut.
sure there's some taxes or something they're going to want. Let's also not forget about the fact that not only are we now in the export business and we're sending Mars rocks to Earth, which who knows what's on those rocks. And I don't know, maybe that'll start some pandemic or something on Earth. I have no idea. But I also just remembered there's supposed to be a Korean woman that gets smuggled onto Mars
Yeah,
at some
they're
point,
in
right?
the human trafficking business too now.
Yeah, they've really leveled up here.
They're creating
Miles.
geopolitical nightmares, right? Because,
Oh my
you got an
God.
American in business with a Russian, and now they're trying to smuggle a North Korean on the ship, which I need you to do some quick research for me, please. Though the North Korean is the same one who survived, who was the first one on Mars, no?
That is 100% my understanding.
Okay, can you look that up and verify that from episode 3? Because I was assuming that as the information, because as I'm writing you text messages and saying you were right about Miles as he breaks into the North Korean side of the base, which they explicitly said, do not go in there. Do not press the red button. He goes in there, takes a thermostat, gets caught taking the thermostat, and luckily for him, he was caught by somebody who needed a favor.
Yes. Lee, I'm probably going to butcher the name, but Lee Young-jil, played by C.S. Lee, is the same guy. He's the guy that we saw in the previous season.
Okay, so he's the one Korean that had a good relationship with Danielle, and because of the North Koreans acting all prickly now, is the one who gave her kind of the cold shoulder earlier in the season. Got it. All right, it's hard to keep track. There's a lot of characters just moving in and out of the show, and it's a lot to keep track of.
And I'm just going to say, they don't have the easiest names either. Sorry. I mean, they're cool, but I'm not good with American English names. So
the Russian names gave me the most difficult time. I thought when Margo was getting interrogated, because they have Kolokov, which is the colonel who came in and shot the guy who was interrogating Margo, right?
Yeah.
And then you got Korshenko, who's now the one who's replaced Gorbachev. And then you got Irina, who's the Hillary Clinton lookalike, or the younger Hillary Clinton lookalike, who is the head of, was the KGB head of the Russian Cosmonaut. There's so many names to keep track of. But I gotta say, the show's back in its groove. And not just that, I'm just going to continue saying, getting rid of the Danny Stevens, Jimmy Stevens, Karen Baldwin story was the greatest thing that ever could have been done in the writing room of this show.
Yes, I 100% agree. If we still had that carrying on in the season, I honestly, I'd still watch the season. I'd still watch it. But I really would not be enjoying it as much as I am right now. I'm so happy that there's something new going on. And again, rest in peace. But, it needed to change. That was like literally the single worst part of this entire show.
I spoke to someone recently who told me, I was really loving the show, but then after, and I loved Karen's character, but then she did the whole Mrs. Robinson thing with, Danny Stevens, and it was just too much. And not even because Danny was younger, but because it was her man's best friend's son. Yeah. It was her son's best friend. It's like, it's so grimy that it's hard to, like, when a hero character does something that is so against their character, it's very difficult. But then again, maybe For All Mankind is trying to traverse those lines of making you feel uncomfortable and making you feel these things about characters. But I gotta say, I would assume most people agree that the Karen Baldwin storyline is not missed, for lack of a better word.
I would really hope so. I really hope that it's not missed, because it wasn't good. It did really kind of take me out of the show. It was my least favorite parts of that season, at the very least. I don't have anything kind to say about it. I really don't.
Yeah. Continuing onward here, there is a mystery that continues with Danny Stevens' fate. Nobody has said it yet completely. And it's what on earth happened to Danny Stevens. You have this altercation between Ed and Danielle, which has been heading for a collision course for a while now, right? Yeah. And they both sort of say things that are true about each of them, right? I think what Ed said about Danielle is true about Danielle, and I think what Danielle said about Ed is also true. And this all has really come to a head because the situation that occurred in episode 4 with, I understand Sveta, man, it's so hard for me to pronounce. Is it Svetlana? Is it even Svetlana or is it Sveta?
It's spelled as Svetlana Zakharova.
Okay, so it's Svetlana. That's easier for me to say than Sveta. But anyways, she pushes this guy who was a douchebag, who pretty much called her a traitor to the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think that warrants a push. Unfortunately, in Mars, a push can be fatal. And the guy, cuts open his suit. Well deserved. I gotta say, I was applauding her pushing this guy down. Unfortunately, she's probably just too honorable, and she probably wrote in the report, "Hey, I pushed this guy and he fell." Yeah, but she did save his ass. She could have let him die.
Yeah, she definitely could have let him die. I mean, it clearly was not intentional. I was rather surprised by the fact. Well, the push was intentional. She didn't mean to like almost kill him. That's not at all what she meant to do.
Yeah.
So like I found the reaction from Russia to be a little surprising. However, then we find out that he's actually related to the people that are now in charge in some way. So.
Which I love how Russia on the line with Eli Hobson Arena says that's American propaganda that he's connected, that his family is connected to the inner circle. And then immediately in her meeting says the Americans have conceded, and the nephew of somebody very close to the organization has been has been accounted for. So it's like one thing to one and one thing to another, which at the end of the day, if you think about Arena's position, that India solution that Eli came up with was brilliant for all parties, right? Because you have her who's just trying to appease her boss. You got Eli trying to appease his boss, Al Gore, who ripped him a new one, which we saw a new side of Eli screaming at his stationary bike, which seemed to have struck a chord with you. What did you think about the peek into maybe the true nature of Eli Hobson?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, the entire time that we've seen him, I don't actually think I've said this, but I mean, he just seems like somebody who, I mean, you've probably met the people who are really, really reserved, but then once they're behind closed doors, they get really, really like they have an attitude problem. They kind of go off the hinges. That's kind of what he seemed like to me. So I liked the little sneak peek of it. But I mean, his wife did come in and kind of calm him down. So I don't know. Like this guy seems really chill in like high pressure situations.
He does, and I have a tendency sometimes of writing notes, predicting. Like as I'm watching a scene, I'll just write what's going to happen before it happens. Yeah. If I really think that the direction is pretty obvious, For example, when Miles and Samantha almost kiss in the rover, I just wrote like, oh, potential affair. Before they look in the eye, I was like, oh, it's setting up for affair mode, which I saw kind of like an episode or two ago. I mean, you got Miles, good looking dude. You got Samantha, good looking girl, 200 million miles away from Earth.
Yeah,
doesn't seem to be any competition in that kind of room with Miles. Some drinks at Helios, walking back to the bunk one night, bada bing, bada boom. You got a Mars baby.
Yeah, it was really funny. My wife watched a little bit of the first episode with me, and then she was walking by today. Actually, I was watching this last episode 4, and she's like, "Isn't he married on Earth?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, they like each other. I'm like, well, I mean, they're friends right now. They're really just bunk mates.
Nah, they like, yeah.
And then like 2 seconds later, there was like that really like intimate stare while they were in the rover together. And I'm like, well, now they do.
No, it was spot on assessment on her part.
Oh,
it also doesn't help that every message Miles opens up goes from 2 darling, cute messages from his daughters and his wife. Like, we need more money, more money, more money, Miles.
Oh man,
good Lord.
I get Miles' motivation. I mean,
you're
in a really crappy situation. First of all, on Earth, you literally leave Earth to go to freaking Mars because you think that that's going to make you enough money to help you recover your relationship with your wife. Then you make less money than you did on Earth. Like, I get the motivation and his reasoning for wanting to, get involved with the speakeasy and, try and make as much money as possible. Honestly, I'd probably be doing that too if I was in his shoes. But like you, I would have read the fine print, just like I do when I sign up for social applications, though you make fun of me for that.
Well, that's a little different.
No, but like I do get it. But man, like his wife, she's getting the taste of it. Like she likes the taste of money. She's like, oh, this is good. Yeah, like I don't know why. Like I don't know why I had this feeling, and I'm ashamed to say it's been so long since I've seen Breaking Bad. I don't know if this was in.
You're getting Skylar vibes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was feeling.
Huh. It's not a bad reference right there.
Thank you. I was a little nervous in saying that because I could not remember for the life of me if that actually happened, but I just like it was in my gut. I feel like it did.
Where's the money, Skylar? I gave it 10. Oh man. You diverted what I was going to say. I thought I wrote in my notes and I was wrong, thank God. When Eli snapped at his not really a Peloton, I said he's gonna have a heart attack. Like this is what's gonna happen. He's gonna have a heart attack, and then Aleida is gonna be left with a crisis where they're gonna want her to be the director of NASA or some crap like that. Something like that. I thought that was gonna happen, but it turns out that he just needed a little gentle guiding from his wife, who pretty much roasted him before encouraging him. She was like,
literally,
listen, like, you smell like crap, you got hemorrhoids
are acting
you can't sit your ass down on a chair because your hemorrhoids are flaring. She said some other nasty things, which he was like, are you trying to encourage me right now? Because Al Gore just ripped me a new asshole, and here you are.
Tough love, man. Tough love.
What'd you think of the Al Gore appearance on the phone? I wonder what Al Gore thinks about Al Gore's appearance in this show.
I don't know what Al Gore thinks about Al Gore's appearance. I don't know anything about Al Gore other than the fact that he almost won. There was like a really, really close like tie in Florida.
Yeah, 500 something votes.
Yeah. So I don't know much. I can't judge his appearance based off of anything. However, in the show itself, for somebody, it's such a high pressure situation. I guess being the president of the U.S., he does seem really, really calm and chill. Like he's got like a lot of confidence in this guy to fix things. Yeah.
I, for one, want to just commend him for his handling of the Elian Gonzalez situation. I thought it really tilted his election in favor.
Clearly.
Yeah. I thought it was a good look. I like how this show's making you like every character at this point. Like, I can't name a character who I absolutely dislike. I would say Margo might be like my character that I dislike the most in this series. Because I've never felt like when I watch Margo on screen, even though I like her storyline, I think it's very interesting. I've just never personally rooted strongly for her character, especially when I saw her take this turn to this kind of seclusive hermit who never leaves work, I didn't like that for her. I liked seeing the Margo who would perform at the bar, like randomly doing jazz performances on the piano. Like, I liked seeing more of that Margo. I didn't like seeing the Margo who, has an unpleasant, kind of outlook on life, where she's kind of just allowed that Sergei relationship to just completely derail her life.
Entire life. Yeah. Look, I kind of agree with you. I've never been on the Margo train. Like I've never been that like invested into her character. But out of this entire, aside from Miles, because I just find him generally very interesting. I think the one person
Miles is good, right? We all agree that Miles is like a winner of the season so far.
Oh yeah, he steals it. Like I'm very happy with him being on the show. Mm-hmm. The one character, however, that does tend to get on my nerves quite a bit from time to time, even though I love him, is Ed. I know it's like blasphemous saying that, but Ed, Aleida is probably like my number two in terms of just like she gets on my nerves every now and then, but.
I forgive all but Ed Baldwin slander, bro.
Man, Ed, like I like Ed. I just want him to kind of like grow up a little bit, like modernize his thinking in some ways. Like okay, let me say this.
Are you Danielle? You're Danielle. You're Danielle.
I agree with Danielle in the situation now, right? Like I do think that Ed lets himself become very blind to people that he cares about. Like let's think about this. Let's think about this. In the previous season, when look, the reason so many people died on Mars was because Ed let Danny come. That's why. He shouldn't have been. Danny should not have been there.
Ed also didn't have all the information that Danny had slept with his wife. So let's also say that if Ed had that information, if Ed had also known that he was abusing drugs,
I think he knew he was abusing drugs. Like, that was pretty clear.
Yeah,
that was the whole reason there was a concern.
But I think he found out that Danny was being negligent on duty later. But I think he just drew that up to his father, Gordo, and maybe this guy, he's just enjoying a little bit too much of, drink and whatever else, Yeah. But you can understand Ed's perspective there of, hey, this kid's parents both died in space.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm partly the reason his father got back into space after being, getting fat and having this whole thing, which was a fun storyline.
It was a fun storyline.
Get back in shape. R.I.P. Gordo Stevens, Tracy Stevens, much better than their children.
My favorite characters.
Yeah, they were awesome. So you can see Ed's perspective there. But I said this earlier in the episode. That's why, I don't want to sit here for a second. Okay. Danielle has had some choice words about Ed when Ed's not in the room. Okay? Yeah. We haven't really seen Ed talk crap about Danielle when she's not in the room. He seems to be, the one thing with Ed is he's a straight shooter. He's going to tell you to your face what you think, and he's not going to go and say it to someone else. He's going to tell you straight to your face. Okay? Which is nice. What he said about Danielle is, actually, let's start with what Danielle said about Ed. What Danielle said about Ed is spot on. He has a blind spot for those he's close to, and he makes exceptions for those he's close to. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Okay? In the times that it's good, coups died. Okay? In the time that it's bad, coups died. You know what I mean? In the time that it's bad, Danny Stevens comes on board, and who knows what the hell happened to Danny Stevens. I think he killed himself, but they won't say it. They won't say what happened, but I believe he probably killed himself. In the times that it's good, it's good. He has Danielle. He fought for certain people to be with him in certain situations, I believe, right? So, but what he said about Danielle is also true. She likes to appease her higher ups to a point where she kind of disregards the implications of other things, But Danielle's acting stupid the whole time until after she says, I know what's going on with you and Sveta. Then say that straight up. But, don't act like you're oblivious to the fact that you're sending his lover, right? You don't know what's going to happen if you send her to this new regime in the Soviet Union. You don't know if she's going to die.
I think she's going to die.
It's one of those things where it's like, that's a very serious decision, Yeah. Anyways, any final words on your Ed Baldwin slander?
No, dude, I love Ed Baldwin. I want him to, if he wouldn't be so blind to some of these things and just literally turn a blind eye, there'd be a lot less dead people. I'll leave it at
Name
that.
Name them. Name all the. I'm going to put you on the spot.
There's so many, I can't.
Exactly, because you got none. You've got none that you can put out
Danny there. To start with.
Right? You're going to blame Danny Stevens' death or maybe death on Ed Baldwin?
I think it's a possibility. I think it's a possibility I could do that. No, man, look, there's a lot of people that were on Mars that died because of Danny Stevens. Danny Stevens was only there because Ed brought him and let him come. So that's all I'll say. I still love Ed.
Danielle was right about assessing Danny as not ready. I 100% agree with that. I just don't think that Ed had all the information to make a decision.
All right, but then let's take this Svetlana situation here. Ed is being so blind to what's going. First of all, we knew at the beginning of this season that he was being very blind to the feelings of the people up top and the people down below.
Agreed.
And this just he's very insensitive and not observant of his surroundings. That is the big problem there. So this. I get his point and his perspective, especially because he likes her. But man, you got to think about the group here. You got to think about the impact of this narrative that keeps getting pushed here.
I'll go a step further. He's putting lots of things in danger with his shaking hand, right?
That too.
To the point where he has Sveta do the docking procedure earlier in this episode, not really to give her the chance, but more so because his hands are not steady enough to do a procedure like that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be exposed because the next person coming in, he's not going to be tight with like that. Who's going to keep that secret?
No, and who knows when that next person's gonna get here?
Oh,
Like
it's good.
maybe
No,
maybe he's got to do something highly tactical.
no, it'll
and
probably be
can't.
immediate, and he'll probably have to admit it, or he'll fail. I think Ed Baldwin's the type to fail before he brings it up, similar to kind of that Russian guy.
I agree. I completely agree.
Semenov, who got in trouble for hiding stuff. But
Mhm.
how about Ed having a secret pot stash in the greenhouse, which I'm shocked nobody's caught a whiff of on the ship.
Seriously, I mean, you've got like no ventilation. I mean, maybe you got air filters, but that stuff stinks.
Yeah, and Wayne is Molly Cobb's husband.
Yeah, that's right. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with the names.
He's got the hookup.
Wayne Cobb, he gave him the seeds, and he says the plants just took off. Because Ed Baldwin smoking pot, I would have never guessed that in a million years.
You know, I don't think I was too surprised though when it happened. Like the moment he was like, "Yeah, come up to my whatever it was," and then here's some weed.
Yeah,
all right.
Let me tell you, Ed's got a really I can see why he never comes back to Earth. Like he rules the ship. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's a hero on the ship for the most part. Okay. He's got really cozy quarters. He's got his own little greenhouse there. Yeah. You know, he's got whatever he wants. He's got spaghetti every day. You know, Ed and his spaghetti.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, dude, Ed is set. Like, I mean, I get why he kind of doesn't want to come home. I mean, like, this is his favorite thing in the world is being in outer space and, you know, working, right? Like he's kind of a workaholic in some senses, but man, he's got to go home. Like it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It is going to happen in the season. He's going to come back to Earth. Sorry, I don't think he's going to be the president, not with the sheikhs or whatever he's got going on here.
No. Well, you never know. Certain world leaders have been known to, stumble downstairs in lots of scenarios.
Stumble upstairs 3 times in a row.
So like if Ed gets a little shaky, we've seen worse. But so Sveta gets sent home on this very walk of shame type of walk. Even Danielle gives her like a kind of dirty look. I'm glad Ed kind of shoulder bumps Danielle on the way out. Kind of reminded me when LeBron James came to the Miami Heat like years ago.
Yeah.
The first year there was a little bit of like controversy that he wanted the head coach Eric Spoelstra fired, and he wanted Pat Riley to take over, who's a legend. You know, he's my favorite sports figure of all time. And Riley said like pretty much don't ever do this again. Don't ever come to my office again. Like asking for this. That's what I heard. I've read a report about something like that. I don't know if it's true or not. But one of the altercations that occurred was there was a timeout, and LeBron walked past Spo, kind of shoulder bumped him, and then they all denied it. Like, oh, I didn't even notice. I didn't notice. Ed noticed though. He noticed that shoulder bump. He definitely bumped her on the way out. I think they recovered because I think that their high bob, relationship is too strong to be severed with this, unless Sveta gets killed or something like that. In which case, I think everything's out the window.
Yeah, I feel like their friendship in the end will prevail. I think they will. I think they're still going to be friends, regardless of what happens. I know I said she's going to die. I don't know that she's really going to die. Like I don't think they're going to kill her off right away. Not after they built that connection with Ed and Svetlana.
Realistically, though, I don't believe that the way that this new regime is acting in Russia, I do not believe that they, like, if we're going to be unrealistic, then let's have an optimistic turn on the show. Okay. But realistically, if I had to say, like, if this is how it's playing out in real life, I don't think that a regime like that would ever be warm towards the West or cooperate with the West in any way, and which makes Happy Valley all the more complicated in the way that they've done this partnership, right? Because the moment there's any sort of geopolitical tension, you got the Russians changing the language on the freaking modules, So, and then you got the North Koreans who don't let anybody inside of their little pocket. So Happy Valley seems doomed for failure unless this show just really wants to go down an optimistic path towards global cooperation, which in order to get that, you would need every single one of them to have a mutual benefit or a mutual incentive that requires them, right? Whether it's saving their own citizens or the asteroid capture program that could be lucrative for all of the countries involved in the M7 alliance.
Yeah. I don't really think that we're going to take a positive turn here, or like a positive outlook on like the entire world. I feel like every time we take a step forward, we're taking like a couple steps back. Like the whole situation in Happy Valley is extremely complicated. I'm not surprised that it's not going well. It almost makes you wonder, like, what the real point of having Happy Valley is. Like, why not just let everybody like build their own outposts out there? You do what you want to do, just stay away. I mean, I guess we kind of did that on the moon a couple seasons ago. And
look, I think what occurs here, I think the opposite. I think the purpose of this show is to show the importance of mankind reaching for the stars. That is the purpose of For All Mankind. And I think part of the show's feeling is that if we had never stopped that reaching for the stars, that we would be in a more advanced place, not just technologically, but in terms of our geopolitical alliances. We'd be in a much more communicative stance because we'd be cooperating with each other to expand not just a country's interest, but a actual planet's interest. All right. So I think that's part of it. And I think that the way that the show would like to end is that at the end of it, you got the world working with each other more than ever before. There's never going to be perfect, but if anything's ever been true, it's that at the end of the day, we all put our differences aside to advance humankind. Not Russia kind, not America kind, not North Korea kind, all these things. So I think that at the end of the show, when whatever the last season, whatever the last episode is, it will be about, yes, humans are not perfect. Yes, we're brilliant and we're evil, and we'll have all sorts of tendencies that conflict with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when you get some decent people in a room who are all going for the same goal, that's what they want. They want that optimistic outlook that it can be possible. Otherwise, what was the legacy of the show?
Yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice if it happened. With having your ties to Earth, it's just so complicated, because as long as there's like competition, I mean, we're not all going to be working together. So I mean, like, I feel like we're going to have to carry this much farther into the future. We're going to have something that is way bigger than humanity come into play here to bring everybody together. Now, that would be a really interesting ending to the show. I don't know, maybe that sets us up for Star Trek or something like that.
Yeah, we did have
interesting.
We did have the emailer write in about that, whether that's aliens. But I would argue that competition is necessary for innovation, that you need these countries stacking up against each other, right? If you have one country pulling all the weight and getting all the credit for something, that the other countries naturally need to get a little competitive and also start. And I think that you see that on this show with, yes, what was it? Russia got to the moon first, right? And then all the Americans are like, all right, well, we got to get the base on the moon first. And then the Russians send a woman up there, like, all right, well, we got to get, a whole team of women up there, like it's all sorts of things. And then the North Koreans get to Mars first, which is ridiculous. But nonetheless, they get to Mars first, whether it's accidental or not. And I think that competition, although it breeds this kind of conflict, it also breeds this innovation that you see as well.
It is. I completely agree. It's 100% necessary for innovation. Like, that's what really pushes us forward. Like, if there's going to be this competition, I see that as a blocker in some ways for us all coming to like unite as one. Right?
Until the very last episode of the very last season, where Ed is 137 years old and he's on a radio and he gets a signal from an alien outpost, and that's the end of For All Mankind.
Maybe Ed will like fly into a black hole and just like reverse an age. Yeah. That'd be something else.
By the way, speaking of Matthew McConaughey, because we had that Miles scene earlier in the season when he's looking through all of his home videos and his daughter's messages. I don't think he'd be as susceptible to having an affair on this ship if he wasn't feeling that pressure from home. So, it doesn't help. Anyways.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Let's continue onward here. I have the odd sense that when Galkin, the man the Russian that Sveta pushed and he cut his arm open, when he wakes up and finds out that she's been pretty much deported from the ship to stand before a tribunal, that he's going to be the one who saves her. He's going to be like, listen, she saved my ass. I said some out-of-pocket stuff to her. Let's not do this. You drop the charges, send her back to Mars. Russia united. I don't know. Maybe he becomes president or something of Russia. But
President of Russia.
You know what I mean? So I think that's very likely to happen. Hopefully for her case, right? Because I liked what I saw between her and Ed.
Well, we're assuming that he pulls through, right?
Yeah, he's gonna pull through. If he's not dead by now, he'll pull through.
Her outcome is going to depend on whether or not he lives or not. At least that's the way that I'm looking at this. Like if he dies, she's dead. But I don't. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could be right. Maybe he will put his neck out there for her.
What's crazy to me is that little push cracked his suit open, like it cut his suit open. Meanwhile, Miles is using like a 2000, like a 1913
I thought about that too.
Astronaut suit model, falls from a mountain, slides all the way down on jagged rocks, probably the entire way, then falls about 25 feet into a hole with rocks all around him and not even a crack on his helmet.
Yet somehow he cut his arm open
on the inside.
Yeah. On the inside.
Maybe these older models were more durable because they looked so inflexible that maybe that's one of the pros of it, despite the cons being that you walk around like Bubble Boy.
Just constantly got your arms out to the side. What a great suit. It's kind of cool that they've got those things lying around though that you can just hop in every now and then.
Yeah,
I'll take that. What'd you say? 1916 version of the suit.
Yeah. For real. I mean, you just knew. All right. Which, by the way, brilliant idea. Like, I really like the idea of exporting these rocks from Mars for the jewelry. Right. Like, that's a whole new trade that Miles has uncovered. Right.
Yeah.
That is
a black market.
That's a brilliant business model. We're going to export rocks from Mars. They're going to be highly rare, and we're going to get paid a lot of money for these rocks so that you can make your jewelry with them. Pretty brilliant.
Yeah. But I feel like the export business though is so much more risky than the import business here.
Is it? I think the export's easier than the import.
I don't mean like logistically complicated. I just mean like, okay, you imported some cigarettes to Mars. What are you going to do? Right? But if you're sending rocks from a foreign place that may have foreign contaminant and you have no idea what's in it, truly, or on it,
you wipe out the planet.
You
wipe out the planet with like some Mars bacteria.
Hey babe, here's a rock I picked up for you from Mars. You just literally murder the entire Earth.
I guess you'd win your bet if that was... Actually, no, technically I'd win the bet in that one, right? Because Mars would be okay, but Earth would be decimated with a contagion that Miles brought back to try to make $5,000 off of some Mars rocks.
Yeah, what a life. So yeah, that's why I think the export business is a lot more dangerous than the import business.
I'm just saying, for me, it's like, if you can get the rocks, fantastic. If you don't, like, hey, we don't take orders, all right? If we have the rocks, we have them. If we don't, we don't. But we're not fulfilling orders. We're not doing any of that stuff on it. When we get the rocks, we go to the jewelers and we do this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that a couple times? You got a lot of money. Bag full of rocks? $100,000 a bag? I don't know.
How much do you think that those earrings are going to sell for? I mean, if the jeweler bought that tiny little rock for $5,000.
I'm assuming you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars here with this Mars program. The only thing is how do you, they have no way of actually verifying these are real rocks. Like, a diamond, you can check if it's real. You can't check if this Mars rock is legit.
Well, maybe Kelly and Aleida can. You never know.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, she's always obsessed with looking for life and
but just because they can walk up to Dev IS's house doesn't mean that Miles can walk up to their house. He doesn't have those connects.
No, of course not. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting Miles to. I
Yeah.
was just thinking about who could validate that these were actually from Mars. Also, I feel like that rock would have been priceless, not just worth $5,000. I mean,
Yeah, but
there's
it's
literally one of its kind. There is nothing else at this point.
yeah, I agree. She,
She
for her
undervalued
being
it,
so
man.
tight on money, she was really not good at negotiating the price of that rock. And also, she sold her daughter's rock, I think. I hope she
Yeah.
didn't. I hope
Oh,
she
she
didn't
did.
sell that one. That's messed up.
Of course she did. That's all that was sent. It was her
That's
rock.
that's
She was
messed up.
holding it. It was her
That's
rock.
so messed up.
Is the one thing from her dad from
It's so
freaking
messed.
Mars, 200
That's
million miles
so.
away. And you're like, yeah,
Just think
$5,000.
about that. I
Yeah,
just think about that because I know, if there is anybody who's listening to this episode that's like, oh, Mario's being really harsh on Miles' wife. She has all the pressure of taking care of the kids back at home. He just sent this rock, and the value that she placed on this heirloom that the father sent to his daughter. The price she put on it was $5,000.
a priceless heirloom.
It is. It's the
It's
first
one of
rock.
a kind.
It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're gonna just sell it. How about like, hey, we'll get you the next one. But I don't think it was confirmed that she did sell it. So I'm gonna
She
give her
sold
the.
it. I swear she sold
No,
it.
they
It
said
was
that they
$5,000. She got
offered.
$5,000.
She said that they offered $5,000 for it.
But then she asked for more rocks.
So then we could get you. Oh, true.
I
right.
I don't think there's a reality where she didn't sell it. Whether she outright said she did or not, she sold the rocks.
Maybe.
Even though she had probably like 60 grand in the bank at this point with his smuggling business going on.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows how much debt they're in? But all right, where do we go from here? Sveta's being sent back. Danielle has, frayed her relationship with Ed by not listening to him, although she was in a very difficult situation in the first place. You got Aleida and Kelly with Dev, who are now taking over Helios and are going to start the Mars Secret program. And you got this Russia Margo situation where she's essentially the shadow director of Roscosmos.
Yeah, I mean, it sure seems that way. She's the brightest person in that place. At least that's the way that they make it seem. So I imagine that, well, let me say this. I was wondering if she was going to kind of like move her way up the ranks to become the director over there. I don't see that happening.
No, neither do
Man,
I.
but
Because they
I
have
just
to keep a secret.
I feel like she's gonna make so many enemies where she is. Like she's gonna be so isolated because now when she shows up people over there, it's not just like showing up somebody over here where you get a promotion. Over there, it's like, okay, the KGB took him. It's like, all right, you're not gonna have any friends.
Yeah. I love how Irina's like making fun of Semenov, who she sent off to God knows where.
Mhm.
And she says, everyone here is looking over their shoulder. They're scared. They're scared to pretty much act. You're different. I'm like, I wonder what makes Margo different. Could it be she's American? Could it be that she doesn't have to worry about being sent to a freaking work camp for 10 years as they threatened her with earlier in the episode?
Or is just fairly ignorant to that being the fact. Like she just doesn't seem to understand quite yet that they know everything.
Yeah. All right. Let's round out this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed our kind of high level sum up episode of season 4, episodes 3 and 4. Looking forward to episode 5 next week. And we hope you're enjoying not just our For All Mankind coverage, but also our Monarch Legacy of Monsters coverage. We dropped a new episode last night, and we got the rest of the season coming your way, as well as my coverage I'm doing on Tuesday nights for Hard Knocks Miami Dolphins edition. So if you want to join us there, it is not a sports show. Okay, y'all? It is not a fantasy football show. We had a couple commenters who, I'm not even going to give it any air, but it's not meant to be a show that we get heavy into statistics and sports nerd talk or anything like that, which I do thoroughly enjoy that myself. But it's more about the psychology of the team and the journey of the team as a Dolphins fan and overall just a football fan. So if you want to check that out and you're a sports fan, which according to our Spotify Wrapped, many of you out there are. So check it out. Categories?
Sweet. Yeah, I do have some categories actually. Let's start with favorite character of
characters.
episode 3.
3. Devaesa for me.
Okay, I almost picked him, but I knew you'd pick him, so I picked Miles for episode 3. I think Miles, was I really liked watching, his journey. He became a smuggler.
You liked his North Korean.
Yeah,
mission?
that was pretty ballsy.
That was super ballsy.
For a thermostat or whatever. Great stuff. Favorite scene from episode 3?
It was the Ilya orientation of how to be a smuggler. I thought that was the best scene in the episode for sure.
My favorite scene in the episode was Devaesa taking over.
Oh yeah.
That was great.
All right,
that one
it's maybe 2.
But I like yours too. I think that was a good one. How about best line of episode 3?
I don't have one for episode 3, but I do have one for episode 4.
I've got, okay. I'll go over mine, and you can agree with mine because it's the best line from the episode. I think it is. The universe doesn't send messages. It's not sentient. It doesn't give a damn about you and me.
I didn't like Devaesa's nihilistic line, so that's why
it was a great line. It was impactful. It stood out.
It did stand out.
That's my rule for a good line.
I got my episode 4 line, but all right, episode 4.
Episode 4, favorite character.
You go first on this one.
Isn't it? I'm gonna go with Margo.
Okay, fair. Why?
I like seeing her back in her lane, I guess, if that makes sense, right? I mean, she's back in, doing the thing that she's really good at. I liked it. I also like the fact that we're not just kind of left wondering what's going to happen so much. I mean, she's finally back to work. I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing her kind of show up her peers in this situation again.
I think I'm going to go Ed here on this episode. With the way he treats Sveta, the way he doesn't care about what the repercussions are with Russia. And what's right is to keep her here. We're not going to listen to you guys. We're going to keep her here. I know it's reckless. I know it's not necessarily the thing that you can do. But I like the fact that he was even going to smuggle her down to the 4th level and just bring her food and stuff. Like, as the type of guy who probably would go with her, if need be. I also liked, him pretty much telling Palmer, I'm going to walk her. I already said I'm going to do it. And then standing up to Danielle, so I just like that Ed has no patience for the bullshit of politics that occurs with the upper management that he has to deal with, right? They're the ones taking the risks, and they have to deal with all this geopolitical nonsense, right?
Yeah, I do think that's bullshit. I agree with Ed on that front.
Ed's not changed, maybe to a fault in some ways, but largely it's positive in terms of that his principles have remained the same throughout the entire series. By the way, you mentioned him being blind earlier in this episode we covered. I don't know about blind, but he is going to be in a Christmas movie, where he is deaf or mute. No, really? I think he's mute. He's mute. It's coming out. It's called Silent Night. It's an action movie. Kind of reminds me of John Wick a little bit. It's coming out on Christmas Day or maybe a little bit before. And Joel Kinnaman is the lead, and it looks terrific. If you look up the trailer, it looks awesome. So
I just saw the poster for it earlier, but I hadn't looked into it. I'm like, that looks like Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I'll add that to my list. Favorite scene from episode 4, and then we'll get to our line.
Probably Miles getting saved.
Okay.
By Sam.
We picked a close one. Mine was Miles getting a suit. He gets his old dated suit and sees the Russian putting on the nice suit. He's like, I want that one.
Is it wrong of me to kind of root for Miles and Sam here?
Immoral, maybe. I don't know.
Immoral, but it feels almost like
it feels right. I mean, there's more chemistry there. Clearly, I mean, at least on screen.
Yeah, at least, maybe it's because we haven't seen him enough with his wife for real. But
we also don't know what all happened in that situation.
True.
All right, best line of episode 4.
Mine is, where is it at? A woman without coffee is a dangerous woman.
That's a good one. That is a good one. You know mine already.
I think
it's Yeah. Sorry, it wouldn't shut the fuck up.
Oh, that's right. You texted it to me. Yeah. It was Eli. Eli with the bike. That's hilarious.
Love it.
All right.
Alrighty. Anything else you want to say before we close this thing out?
No. I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy this episode. Doing whatever you love doing, wherever you are in the world. And we thank you always for tuning in. So yeah, Zach, to your outro.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of For All Mankind by Story Archives. You can find this wherever you find podcasts, Apple and Spotify podcasts. You can visit our website at soapbox.house, email us at contact@soapbox.house. You can visit us on YouTube at Soapbox Podcast Network. And we have a link in the description below to sign up for our quarterly newsletter.
Until next time,
pick up the pace.
Pick up the pace. I was going to say, until next time, have a nice soul.
That's a great one, too. Peace.
Right. Bye, Bob.
Bye, Bob.